Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quantum Leap Revisited, a show that we do once a week where we talk about the classic sci fi series Quantum Leap starring Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell. And today we're going to be discussing the season 5 episode called Lee Harvey Oswald. It's the season premiere of the 5th season. And the reason why it's kind of nice is that we've been doing this for a while now and we're already on season 5. And not only has this fine panel of gentlemen been here throughout this whole process, but a lot of you guys in the chat have been here for this journey as well. And we just absolutely love that. So before I go into introductions, I want to quickly thank very much Mary White, who was gifted 20 Price of Reason Live memberships today. It's very, very kind of you, Mary. Mary recently has been very, very generous, and that kind of stuff really helps our channel. So Mary, we do really appreciate it. Thank you. It's very kind of you. And the Dead Man, also a friend of the channel, he says this one will either get demonetized or have a Wikipedia disclaimer underneath. You may be right. It's a tricky one. It's certainly a tricky one. And it's great to see so many of you already here, showing up here, so many of the regular people. And let me start with our panelists. Let's start with Ro. Ro is a veteran broadcast newsman who has production experience, knows a lot of kind of behind the scenes technical stuff. He also is the founder of the Red 5 network of podcasters. In addition to that, he also has his own podcast called the Sacrif Podcast, also known as the Sacrif Scuttlebutt Podcast. And you can listen to that in Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify, anywhere you have podcasts. How's it going, Ro?
It's going fantastic. Good to be here. Sorry I missed last week.
It's okay. I mean, I know you had those. You were tied up with work, and that happens sometimes. But I will say that it was a unique episode. That's why I was sad that you weren't here, but it was more for selfish reasons. But with that being said, we're happy to have you here today. And with us is also a script doctor, veteran screenwriter, has his own Patreon where he teaches screenwriting. He's also the host of the show Scripts on Saturdays, every Saturday at 7 p.m. on his own channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, on his own channel, the Script Doctor, which you should also, of course, subscribe to. How's it going, Script?
It's going well. Happy to be here this evening.
We're happy you're here also. I know you also have been tied up in work lately, so we appreciate that as well. And finally, we have Nick, who also has been tied up in work a lot lately, but also we're all of us here for this very unique episode. Nick is a minister in his local town. He's also locksmith in his local town. He also consults the sheriff and the fire department and has his own ranch where he raises goats. And he's a sci-fi expert. And he has his own channel, Backyard Tardis, where he, as a member of the Red 5 network, which Ro founded, talks about pop culture and other things. How's it going, Nick?
Going good.
And I guess we can just jump right into it here after all these wonderful intros and just talk about this week's episode, which is Lee Harvey Oswald. That's what the episode is called. We're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald Part 1. So Part 2 will be a separate discussion, but there's certainly a lot to discuss about Part 1. And I guess before we jump into it, if any of you want to just, Ro, if you have like a sentence or an initial thought.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the whole JFK assassination thing. That's actually how I met my podcast partner back in 2019. He's a big JFK, like aficionado, if for lack of a better term. But this one is I was interested to get into it, and it's a little odd, and I guess that's not really one sentence, but I'll make it quick. It's odd. I'm eager to see what part 2 is about and how they resolve it. But again, the plot devices of him going, back and forth here and there is going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And I see already, or even our chat has a lot to say about it. I tend to agree, Ro. I've always been intrigued by this subject matter. And I think even as a kid, I was intrigued by it. And when I saw the episode when I was young, initially when I saw that he was going to leap into Lee Harvey Oswald, even before it happened, and I was watching these kind of as they were actually being aired, I was very excited. The thing is that, like you said, even though I really was excited about the concept, there's something a bit odd about how things go in this episode. Certainly something to discuss. Script, how did you feel about it? Just a general one-sentence thoughts.
It's a fascinating episode, but it is Don Bellisario's response to Oliver Stone's movie that came out the year before this aired.
Right. I actually agree with you 100%. The question is if the response... there's a few questions that need to be asked, and I'll just quickly say it. I understand he wanted to create a response. I don't know if Quantum Leap was the best vehicle for that response, but that's just my personal thoughts. We certainly have a lot to talk about. Nick, how did you feel about this episode?
Well, as I got into this episode and I saw what the subject matter, I figured Ro would like it because I know Ro's really into that, but I'm not into the JFK conspiracy stuff. Outside of that, the other factors in this that we're kind of all tiptoeing around before we get into it, I didn't like, and I'd put this episode in my bottom 3.
I see. All right. Well, these are very strong comments. Even everybody has strong opinions. And I guess without further ado, we can just sort of jump into this episode, which starts off a bit different than most episodes we've seen.
Well, for starters, we have a brand new theme, a remix
Yes.
of it.
Yeah, it was a little weird. It almost, I mean, it definitely took me back to that era. The show openings of that era. I mean, it I don't know if it reminded me like of a sitcom and less of this type of like drama or whatever.
It gave me the feeling of this show is on the chopping block and they're trying to shake it up.
And that's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And you know what? The truth is, it had such a great theme song that it didn't need that kind of revamping. I know people that hate the revamping. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I hate it, but I will say that it just doesn't feel as natural as the original one. And the original one sounded so good to me that I really wouldn't have changed anything about it. The original one sounds a little more kind of timeless. It sounds a little dated, but maybe a little more timeless, whereas this one sounds like exactly when they made it.
Yeah,
It's a celebration of the show. It's supposed to be like the epic. Hey, we're in the 5th season. This is where we get our 100 episodes.
Which they never did actually, but
Which they fell short of by only a bit, by like 3. Yeah, they fell short by 3.
Murr Rockstraw is reminding us to embiggen it.
oh, okay,
Please
sure,
and thank you.
absolutely.
There you go.
So we're here, and it's embiggened. And now this is the one case where they actually start with the intro, and instead of having him leap into Lee Harvey Oswald like in the previous episode, he just it starts with a revamped opening. And then
some teasers of episodes to come, and then we get into basically. So a fun fact: Don Bellisario actually knew Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes.
They're in the Marine Corps together, and so he's doing this basically saying like of the facts that Bellisario knew personally, of the stuff that's on record. He's doing his own little response to Oliver Stone. Bellisario knows that Oliver Stone is a whack job because he is, but he's a really good director and he knows how to really dig into those stories. But and a lot of people conflate him being a genius when he's really just obsessive and really enjoys his
Is there a
recreational.
difference?
Well, no, yeah, there is. He really enjoys his recreational pharmaceuticals. That's
There
why.
you go.
Yeah, Bellisario, this is him saying like, you don't really know what you're talking about there, Oliver. and I think that's why the narration of this episode is so odd, even though it did win an Emmy for editing.
I see. That actually surprises me. I didn't see anything particularly interesting about the editing, but it is what it is, I guess. I will say this. The tone and the feel of this episode is kind of different than a lot of things we've seen before. It starts off with his title. The following story is based upon the known evidence and established facts collected in the 3 decades since the JFK assassination. That's kind of a problematic statement to begin with, because everything that has to do with the investigation into his murder has always been a bit fishy to begin with. I don't know if that's a statement you could just throw on the screen and expect everybody to believe, but I suppose that's what Don Belisario believes.
That's why I feel like this is a bad subject to bring into a time travel show, because the moment you do this, you're going to state whatever you show in the show is actual historical fact, but it will age poorly, because this is something like, I mean, even if the CIA came out tomorrow and said, yeah, we were behind it all, here's the D-class, people wouldn't believe it. There'd still be theories, because there's so much mystery, and we're at a point now where you could have the absolute truth, and I still think a lot of people would still have different theories.
You're right, and this was Donald P. Belisario's way of saying, hey, you know what, Oliver Stone made a movie, well, I have a show, and I'm going to show him what I think about this. And the truth is, and this is what I was saying in my first sentence, I'm not sure that Quantum Leap was the best vehicle to explore this, especially when you have to put a title and say, this is it, this is the real truth. But this is what he wanted to do. It's his show. I suppose he had the right to do it. He still used it in a way that sort of makes sense within this show, even though it feels a bit forced. It starts off, you see pictures, also this, October 5th, 1957 to November 22nd, 1963. First time we've seen something like that.
Yeah, double date. I really enjoyed the beginning here, where we see the historical pictures of both JFK and Lee Harvey Oswald later on.
I didn't mind it.
It kind of set the stage for, this is a different episode, and I kind of like that. I was like waiting for it. And then obviously that famous picture there.
Who directed? I know that it was written by Donald P. Belisario.
Oh, it was directed by James Whitmore Jr.
Oh, we've seen that name here before.
Oh yeah, he's done a bunch.
So you have this here, and he leaps in. She's like, it's Marina, Lee Harvey Oswald's wife. She's talking to him in Russian, saying that he looks like a fascist killer. And he sort of knows Russian, and he's talking back to her. But the interesting thing is he sort of loses his cool. Even
multiple times. Yeah,
multiple times. Suddenly he grabs her, or he smacks her around.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know why he's doing it. And again, the idea of him going into a bad person and that person sort of taking control of Sam's mind, I don't necessarily dislike the idea itself, but the way they sort of tailored this on this whole Oswald thing, that's the part that I don't know how I feel about. He likes communist stuff. He's talking to her in Russian. She does know English. She doesn't. This is the part where I think he slaps her.
Yeah, because she says his Russian is like a child, and of course he's insecure because he's a tiny little man.
Right, but what I'll say is that you could tell already from here the problem that they have making this episode. Usually, when Sam leaps into some unknown guy, changing some small piece of history, changing a few people's lives, maybe causing a positive chain effect, it's something that you can't later open a history book and say, did he change this? Did he not change that? It's something, that's what the magic of the show, in my opinion, is that it's unknown people, that it's something small, that these small actions, these small things that he does mean so much to these people that we meet in the episode. By making it all about Oswald and also knowing that there's certain things that he's not going to change. You know that even from watching this episode, there are certain things that are not going to be changed because you know what history is, and history is still going to be history. And in order to explain this, you can already tell that they're planting this idea that he's not in control. So we're sort of seeing a documentary about Lee Harvey Oswald with a wrapper of Quantum Leap, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and not having seen this episode in the past and not knowing how they're going to resolve this issue, I did think about that. I thought, the usual leaps are leaps that go into people to change history in some way, to change the outcome of something. and leaping into Lee Harvey Oswald, what what is he trying to say? Is he trying to change the fact that there was an assassination? Is he going to save JFK? What is going to be the outcome? So I thought this was a very interesting way of bringing Sam into this particular story. And again, I don't think that this story would have happened in any season opener before this. So they're kind of, they're bringing their game up, but I'm not sure what the results is, and I probably won't be sure until next week when we see the conclusion.
Yeah, this is the first episode that starts to break some of the rules that Quantum Leap had established up until this point. Rule number one, as Price mentioned, is that you don't leap into a historical figure because you can't have entertainment with that. The history is locked in. It can't be changed. So you don't do that. The other part is that it now officially defines what year Al is in when they've always kept it pretty vague. And then the other part too is they still haven't figured out how the waiting room works now, because it's always like someone else is in the waiting room and then they're in Sam's body, and then there's the souls. They talk about the souls in this one, and two souls can't occupy the same body, and Sam's, like, when Sam finally meets Al, he talks about how he's kind of like outside of his own body, like he's saying things that he's not in control of, and he's not saying, like, and he's watching himself say it. It's so they're throwing in a lot of new elements here, contrivances, in my opinion, to try and have Don Belisario exercise his complaint with JFK movie, Oliver Stone.
I agree, and that's kind of how I felt. The part that he's also like, they tried to tie it to the lore by saying, Al's like, don't you remember when we switched spots? And Sam suddenly does remember it. He's like, yes, I had your libido. And they're trying to sort of explain how in the past he's been influenced. But as much as Sam has been influenced in the past, it wasn't anything like this. Here, there's just several moments that he has no control. And we're just basically seeing what the life of Lee Harvey Oswald was like, which feels like it's a higher priority for Belisario than actually his show here and telling the actual Quantum Leap story. For me, that what it feels like.
Two things I want to point out. Marla has a comment here. This is the first time that he's been brainwashed by the Leapy. Do you guys feel like Lee Harvey Oswald is stronger in a sense than Sam is, and that's why that's happening? Or is there something? And again, we don't know. I don't know because I haven't seen it yet.
Because
and then the other thing, real fast before you respond to that, is you guys obviously know a little bit of the backstory. I've heard you guys mention that this was Belisario's response to the JFK movie. I had no idea, so going into it, I'm just kind of accepting this storyline at face value, not knowing a little bit of that. Do you guys feel like that information colors your opinion on this particular episode at this particular time? And it's hard to say because obviously I have not seen, this is my first time seeing this episode. I don't know how it's going to conclude, but those were some of my thoughts right away.
When I was a kid and I saw it the first time, I didn't know that Belisario had one feeling about it or another. I just saw it, and I thought to myself, the thoughts that a lot of the things that I'm saying now, even though I was young, I said it then. I felt that they didn't feel organic within the show. And over the years, when I learned more about Belisario and what he was trying to do, it kind of only explained how I already felt to begin with. It wouldn't matter to me if he felt that way and wanted to do things, but he told a great story. In this case, I think that he was trying to put like a round peg into a square. I don't know what term I'm looking for, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's here. He has
to his first question though, we see that in the imaging room that Sam's personality is pushing through there at one point.
Yeah.
So, and then a slight spoiler for Ro if he hasn't gone back and watched it, but last episode was the first, which was the season ending. They showed the imaging room, so Am I using the right term?
The waiting room.
Yeah, the waiting room.
So it's kind of like, I think that was like a big thing, and I'm interested to see if, like, for season 5, if this is just going to be a standard thing, we're going to be going in there a lot, because that was kind of a big deal. Like, oh wow, they've finally shown that, and they haven't done that before, which means we're now navigating rules. As far as doing there's 2 other episodes where we've kind of had something like this, the switching between Sam and Al, but that was something that was quite a bit switching. And then the episode before that, I believe, was the one where he was getting electrocuted, and he started fading away. Like, he very much was being mentally affected by the body. He was, so they've had a few times where that, we saw when he was in the mentally
Mental sound. Yeah.
No. The try not to use the word that YouTube, but when I can't think of what the phrase is. But somebody who's slower.
Mentally
when he's in
disabled.
Jimmy. When he's in Jimmy. Yeah.
He does. He kind of affects, and he has some of his mannerisms. So they have shown that he is somewhat affected a little bit.
Yes.
But never, with the exception of that episode where he switched places with Al, never to this extent. And because they had switched that way, I felt like that gave a really good story reason. This episode so far, and I haven't seen part 2, Ro hasn't seen part 2, I don't know if they eventually give us a reason why this is happening that will satisfy me or not. But right now, I'm kind of like, I don't like this.
Well, the only thing that comes close to this where he had no control was the one that he was in the insane asylum, because at that point they electric shocked him and he was going into different characters, and Al couldn't really get control him. But this is different because it's sort of Sam is there, but for the most part, Lee Harvey Oswald is the one really driving all these activities. He's the one that knows. And then you have this thing.
It's almost like they're switching back for moments.
Yeah, I don't love this whole jumping through time. Back to 57, now he's in 63. I don't know how I felt about all this. Anyhow, he's here in Japan. Interesting that they used a different title for this one. They didn't use the usual blue titles.
Because they used the blue for the episode, and then
right
now they're doing this other thing here,
I guess. So he's here, and there's a guy, I think it's Poppy from Seinfeld.
Yes, Poppy from Seinfeld, and what's his name from Sex and the City, who's playing Lee Harvey. And
it's the second time the guy from Sex and the City, Willie Garson, has been on here. He was in that thing against Seymour, played against.
And he recently passed.
Yes.
I love him as an actor. I mean, he's as a Stargate fan, he was kind of a huge pivotal character in that for some of their big major episodes. So I've always enjoyed his acting, and I liked him in the last episode he was in.
He was great in that, yeah.
He played a character more like the characters I usually see him play. This seems different from what he usually plays.
It does seem a bit odd. And then there was also, I will say that when you see this scene, you can tell that Donald P. Belisario really wanted to push the envelope as much as he could to make this have a little more of a serious tone. There's like slurs being used. I think they even use like a word that you usually don't even hear on television, like an a-hole or something like that. There's things that actually I saw this scene and I was surprised by. I didn't remember that, they really tried to go for a more gritty feel.
He called him a beaner.
Right. This was unexpected. I mean, I didn't really know. Donald, I don't know if it suggests that he thought that this is what he saw him act like. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. In any case, Sam doesn't make the shot. The final shot there that he needed to make. And I guess he says, well, you're not going to get like the best grade in your class for shooting, which is interesting because Lee Harvey Oswald, they always say about him that he wasn't considered the best shot in his class. So how could he be the guy that did the shooting, that day in Dallas? But that's a whole different thing. In any case, Al starts talking to Sam, and Sam apparently knows how to take apart and M1 or whatever it is, put it back together, and that's where they understand that like he's very much being controlled by Lee Harvey Oswald. He's like in the driver's seat, whereas Sam has very little control over what's going on here.
And people in the chat are saying that they didn't like the fact that he was jumping, from time to time in the same person. I actually kind of like that. I think it set up for me. It set something up that it was intriguing to me. I was like, oh, okay, well, why are they doing this? So I can't wait to see what next week is and why they're doing it. So I liked it.
Lisa Katrine says, to say something positive about this episode, I do think Scott did a good job in it. And then Tex Rogers says Scott is a good actor.
Yes.
I agree. I think that Scott is definitely game for doing this. He's very much serious about the material. But I could say that every episode. I rarely, if at all, have seen him just phone it in. I think that there have been many screenplays. Some have been better. Some have not been great. And the one thing I can say is that Scott really gives 100% of himself. And Dean Stockwell also does whatever he can with whatever material that he's given.
You know how actors today, they become, after a while, they become executive producers on the show. Have they ever become executive producers on this show?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I think during those days, it didn't exactly work that way. Probably later when he did NCIS, I didn't Google it, but it wouldn't surprise me if he got a credit in NCIS New Orleans. Maybe not from the start, but pretty soon after. It wouldn't surprise me if he got it eventually.
No. Scott Bakula has been able to get executive producer credits on almost everything he's done since 1995.
That makes sense. So yeah, he just didn't have it on this one. But also times were different then. I think that in our day and age or later years, if an actor says I have to be an executive producer and he has a track record, good chance that he would get something like that. In any case, regardless of the credit, you could tell he takes what he does seriously. Have no complaints towards him. Anyhow, this is the part that we were saying that Al also reminds him of the libido, of the changing of all that stuff. And he's saying, no, like, he's saying there's always a piece of somebody left behind. Like, I always have some part of somebody else. And he's like, no, Sam. And he ends up going to the waiting room. And of course, this is what Script was talking. Now the font is even different than the other font. This is a real FontGate script. It's FontGate 2.
No, it's FontGate 3, remember?
Yeah.
There was
You
a
had the
third
second one
font
already.
Wait, what was FontGate 2?
I can't remember what it was, but I just remember you were going up and we said FontGate 2. You didn't go at it as hard as 1.
Yeah.
I see. All right, well, they're already here. And then another font. This is really strange. This font is very different than this font.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where I noticed the stock footage from because I've seen it before.
I feel like they added a lot of fonts later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I won't start with that again, but this was, maybe I will. This was a font, but then that other thing was a different font. And then they went to this, which is the font that we saw before. Anyhow, he's in here. You have Willie Garson, who doesn't really seem like Lee Harvey Oswald between you and me, but whatever. He's starts talking to him about stuff, and you could tell he's kind of wacky.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know what Al is doing, and he's questioning him, and it's kind of a bizarre situation. He also doesn't understand what the Ziggy hand link is, and Al says it's a tape recorder, but then...
Newest model,
yeah. And this is the part where, like, you see the reflection. They've been doing this for the past few episodes where if the person is looking in the mirror, he sees Sam, whereas Sam sees them. Back to the font of the episode. 1957. They're here. Again, with Sam is here. He's an airport controller guy or whatever it is. I'm trying to think if there was anything even significant in this scene. Do you remember what they were even talking about here?
they're talking about Race Car, which was an experimental plane that apparently broke the world record in its altitude rating, but of course that had to be kept top secret because they're spying on Russia, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah, and the fact that he's able to, at a moment, figure out what he's supposed to, like, even though they do the joke that he did it backwards because he's confused, the fact that within a few seconds he understands what his job is and what he's supposed to be doing just kind of felt off.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, again, that's why I think this whole episode just feels like it's like he really wanted to do a documentary about Lee Harvey Oswald, but if he just did the documentary, nobody would watch it. I hate to say it, but I criticize a lot of showrunners these days that do something like that they want to peddle their own propaganda or agenda or whatever it is. I give Donald P. Belisario some slack here because he created the show. He didn't hijack it from anybody. And at the same time, he also, it's not like this is something that he's done throughout the show every single week. He tried to do this one time. I personally, not sure that it worked out well, but this is what he did. Anyhow, they're talking about Japan. They were talking even about before then. He's like, how am I in Japan? It doesn't look like Japan. He's like, Sam, every military base looks the same, but out there, it's Japan. And then, like, he goes here to this, like, shady bar place with male geisha type of dude or whatever it is. And then these
I also was confused about that because at first I'm like, oh, he's at a gay bar. Is that like part of the details of this guy? But then the rest of the bar is not that. So
yeah.
I wasn't sure what. None of this relationship here made sense to me.
It was a bit odd. I think it's implied that he's like the boss of the ladies. Like maybe he's like the male geisha in charge of the female type of escorty ladies. I don't really know. Maybe there's somebody that would know this better than me. I love how they just use the same stock footage of Japan.
Right.
This is Japan. So he's talking to him, and there's also something that the guy is like talking about pillow talk and men, and at some point he even tries to kiss him or kisses him. All weird stuff that you usually don't see. You didn't see much of that on TV. You didn't see certainly on Quantum Leap. All really
I mean,
strange.
are they implying that Lee Harvey Oswald at this point, this is how he was getting secrets out?
You know,
no, this is how he's going to get hooked into leaving the U.S. for Russia.
Right. But even beforehand, it seemed like he was already doing stuff with Pillow Talk. So this is like not. It seems like they're presenting this like it's not his first time. I mean, or he's been doing that activity to try to elicit a foreign agent to come and contact him, I guess.
This was also rather naughty that this lady is trying to
grab his nards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do top secret activities with him. And then
and here's the other thing. The male geisha says you're making a mistake. And again, does Belisario have like insight into Lee Harvey Oswald that
maybe he liked dudes? That's what,
right.
Like, see, that's the thing that, you know, we're getting through the lens of Donald P. Belisario. I don't know. You know, it could be what he thought of him. I don't know what he knows or didn't know. I really don't know how to treat this.
Yeah.
But whatever, they were implying something, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other lady comes and she's fighting this other one.
Mm-hmm.
Weird, right?
She's the implant, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's all very odd.
She's half Russian, half Japanese.
Ah.
Because she talks about that, like, it's horrible for her in Russia because she's not accepted there.
Mm.
Ah, okay. I don't know. The actress looked more Russian than Japanese, but whatever. What do I know?
Well, I think they put some makeup on her to try to make her look a little Japanese.
Oh yeah, they put something around her eyes. There's some.
Well, you can see
there.
the separation between the neck tone and then the face tone. You can tell.
They did a little bit of yellow thingy, right?
Yeah.
or whatever they call it. Back in those days, people didn't really care, but today, like, it would be probably a big deal. You actually have to have an actress that is both, or else people get very upset.
Mhm.
Yep.
I don't really care. I mean, it's not that important of a role, anyways. Like, I could let it slide, but maybe some people wouldn't. Anyhow, even
And
here,
here's-
he's sort of aggressive. He wants to like choke her or something. I don't know. It's all
a couple
very
of
strange.
times, yeah. I mean, this is where Lee Harvey Oswald is starting to control Sam again.
Mhm.
Right.
Because yeah, he chokes her twice.
Well, Sam realizes she's not some Russian agent or spy. She's actually teaching him Russian. He's seeking out Russian influence.
Yeah.
And so he's just using her knowing Russian, and he gets mad when she's like, but wouldn't it be great if you took me to America? Like,
Mhm.
she's attaching herself to this military person just because she's like, I could have the life, which happened to a lot of military guys brought home wives from Japan because of that that they were looking for a way to America.
Yep, and they found that way through pants action.
Yeah. And Mary White said she was half Russian. I understand that now. Paramount Backlot. Yeah, that's one of those places. Anyhow, in real life, Oswald, this is from the Dead Man. In real life, Oswald went to the Soviet embassy in Mexico. Which the CIA knew about, all very odd. There are a lot of very strange things about that whole story to me.
Mm-hmm.
When she says something about like the other sailors, and then that's when he comes really unglued, is when he thinks that she's cheating on him.
Which
I don't
is
know why-
an odd thing to view when considering her place of work.
This shouldn't make me laugh, but I'm sorry that you said it was a Diddy party. It kind of did make me laugh. I don't know if that'll cause any problems for YouTube, but it did actually cause me to chuckle.
Well, like, they also, she asked the question, why is he into dudes or something like that a moment ago. So it's like, what is the relationship like? If they think they're in some sort of steady relationship and he's coming there and the head of staff doesn't know that, like, I'm just very confused about this whole setup. And I feel like this episode is designed to keep you off step because it's supposed to be a mystery. So they're constantly just throwing stuff at you, switching the time period to keep you as the audience second guessing everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. Somebody here in the chat asked if I was sad or something like that. No, I just have had a lot of stuff going on today. I'm very happy to be on the stream here with everybody. So I am also in a place I'm trying to make a little less noise, so I'm trying to be a little less loud. But can you still hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then that's the most important thing. And then let's see what else. So we're here in this. Did I share it? I didn't even share the screen.
Real change.
We spend some significant time in this bar for the latter half of this episode.
Yeah, and it kind of just goes on. Oh, and big in it, I know. Also, Ro has some bad weather, just so you all know. If he suddenly disappears, the weather is bad. This is the part that he starts choking her.
Well,
But
no,
Al
he's
doesn't-
making out with her, and then
Oh,
no, he started choking her, and then he's making out with her. Al's getting all excited.
like, Sam, finally you're doing something. And he's like, oh, I like her. And then they go to the bathroom. And as he's in the bathroom, this guy comes in, like the guy that he made fun of earlier, the captain guy that he got on his nerves.
This
Comes in with-
sergeant, yeah.
Sergeant, he comes in with a few guys. And then he has like Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto.
Communist Manifesto.
Funny. Just
love
happens
that
to carry
cover.
that around.
Yeah.
And then Poppy comes in along with his, two friends, and at this point becomes like an altercation.
Mm-hmm.
This part is a bit weird. Basically, they, like somebody said here, it's a relatively, for Quantum Leap, it's a more violent than usual fight.
Yeah. It's
Ongoing, it continues.
extended. But here, somebody earlier in the chat, I mean, the transformation of the characters that Bakula is playing, it's wonderful to see him kind of like transform, like right before your eyes. There's a part where he's, tying his shoes and he doesn't want to respond to the sergeant, but then something switches in his mind and he turns around real slowly. You can see how great of an actor Scott Bakula is in this scene for sure.
I agree. I think he does a lot of heavy lifting here, and he really tries to sell this.
And I'm
Uh,
surprised they didn't use his roundhouse kick that they usually do.
He did one thing that he kicked him in the chest, but they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think they really
Wasn't
made
his
use.
trademark roundhouse.
Because it's
Well-
not Sam. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah. Chat was saying Sam's skills kick in, but I don't think it's Sam's skills because he doesn't fight like Sam.
Yeah.
Right. And then, they continue to throw each other around. He throws him off the bar. And this is the part where Sam takes out, Sam as Oswald takes out the gun. And it looks like he wants to use it.
Mhm.
And Al thinks of a clever, and then he starts telling him, like, gravitation, a few other things.
Mhm.
And at this point, he kind of talks him out of it. He lowers the gun.
I like this one because the final one has to do with two things not occupying the same space at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is what he thinks is happening, that they're both occupying the body at the same time.
Right, that actually was pretty cool. So he again, now he's in 1959 with one of the fonts we've seen in this episode. And this
And that's
is
Belisario. There he is.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and that's his own way of kind of inserting his interaction that he once had with Oswald.
Hmm.
And
Pitched
I don't
him the Communist Manifesto back in the day.
Yeah.
I really wonder if this was the real meeting that he had with him and this is how it was. I'm not sure. I wonder if this is based on any kind of reality, but
Played by the actor that always plays a Russian.
always the Russian.
yeah.
In Spider-Man 2, I think it's him. He's the Russian landlord.
Yeah.
That's
I love
Ilya
him.
Baskin or Ilya Baskin. He plays.
Yes.
He's been a Russian. I think even in like Austin Powers.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
I first saw him in like Russia. He did there was a big episode of MacGyver where he had to go into Russian lines and smuggle him out.
Oh wait, was that the pilot? I think.
And it was an early episode. Yeah.
Is that the one where he like uses the gun and a string and then causes the trigger off Bob automatically so he can get the guy out? Because that was in the pilot, if I remember. That was a good pilot too.
Yeah, I know it's the first season, so it could have been the pilot.
I feel like in the one that I watched at home in a different service, I think that it didn't say to be continued.
Well, I think this was originally aired as a 2-part special all in one. And
Right.
then it went on syndication or it was broken up.
Right, but still, I saw something earlier that I saw this same episode, but I don't remember it saying to be continued, and it ended here with a fade out. But it doesn't matter. It ends up with Sam as Oswald giving them all this information, and it fades out while this is happening because, like you said, this was actually a 2-parter, but later for syndication they turned it into a 1-parter. And
We said earlier that it won an award for the editing, and the only thing that I could see that was special was when he does like the mid leap, and it kind of has like the black
flash.
and white lightning flash, like. But to me, it doesn't seem special enough to win. But that's the only thing that I note that makes this more special than any other episode.
yeah, I
see,
understand.
I don't see it either. I was just searching about Belisario and Lee Harvey Oswald, and apparently they got into a heated debate at a Marine Air Control Squadron 9 because Oswald was reading Pravda, which offended Belisario. So that was a very abbreviated version of the meeting, I guess.
So I just want to look at some comments. Michelle Ferry, nice to see you here again. This is such a weird episode. Scott totally looks so different when Oswald takes over when he is Sam. That's true.
That's credit to Scott Bakula's acting, I think.
Of course. Marla Sharnoff, I saw the 2-hour version. I did too. Yes, originally it was a 2-hour special. I agree. I saw that as well. And did this show have any proof that Al was a hologram? There usually is one.
Yes, when the Sam shot through him.
Mm-hmm.
That, and also there was a fighting in the bar and somebody punched and Al
went
was
through
like,
him. Yeah.
went through him. So, yeah, I think that, I mean, first of all, it's the first half really of a 2-parter. I don't really know what to say about it. It's a strange episode. It's not the typical thing that we could talk about, I think, because really, it's like I said at the beginning, this feels like a documentary about Lee Harvey Oswald based on the experiences and the perspective of Donald P. Belisario. It's like he's thinking, I met the guy. I know what makes him tick. This is what I think. And it's like, okay, but I don't really know to tell you that he was the only person involved in it. The whole situation with JFK has always been a very, very strange one. And I know that maybe one day somebody will say that Oswald guy did everything and was in charge of everything from A to Z. But honestly, it doesn't really feel that way. It seems like a stretch the way things played out there, the speed in which they found him, how everything unfolded, and that one guy could be at that top of that library and just do all of that by himself. You know, stranger things have happened, but it seems more not likely than likely, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, all that being said, he could be this awful person. He could have been there with the intent to shoot him. He could have even been edged along by the people who actually did it to shoot the president so that he would be there as escape. You know, you could go round and round and round. It seems like Belisario had personally met him, and by that bias was like, yeah, I can believe that guy did it, and so that's what he's doing here. But that's kind of why I messaged you a couple of days ago, Price, asking if we were going to do both parts, because I really feel like as much as I don't like this episode, it really going to depend on how the second half goes, because this really is half of a story. We've had some part ones and part twos, but not the same as this. Like the leap home and stuff like that was they were separate stories that were connected, but this is really like we've seen the first half of an episode.
Right.
I tend to agree with you. The thing is that I hadn't watched it in years and I wasn't sure how it would play out. And I didn't want to unload on everybody 2 episodes. Yeah. So I figured we'll just do the one. But I agree with you. I think that this one, kind of what you see is what you get. I do like that Mary White said that was the tiniest gun. That was a very tiny gun that he had in the bar. Like,
True.
It's a very, very small gun.
Well, those are like the kind that you would see, like that had the slide out of the wrist type guns.
Yeah, it's a secret one. It's the one that Mad Dog Buford Tannen used to kill Doc Brown back in the day before Marty went back and saved him.
Yep.
It's good that they gave him that frisbee at that
the pie.
Right. But wasn't there something that he turned it into a frisbee or some stupid thing? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
frisbee
pie
pies, and then he threw it to deflect the gun, and I guess people were like, "Oh yeah, it's a frisbee."
Yeah, because he saw the name said frisbee, and it was shaped like a frisbee, and he said far out, and they go,
I don't get it.
Anyhow, so I was hoping we would do the whole thing tonight so we could move on to something else next week. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lisa. When I think about it now, I can see arguments being made for why we would have maybe done both of them, but it is one episode and the other one is a different episodes, and we're trying to at least have some kind of structure to the podcast. If on syndication and on streaming services, it was 2 episodes, like in one, I would just go for it, but you know what I'm saying. We're trying to be as accurate as we can, even though I do understand where you're coming from.
Hope we see you next week, Lisa.
That's it. Lisa is gone forever. Rhonda Nefera says, I don't hate this episode, but it's definitely at the bottom of my list of good episodes. You know, we'll watch the second one and we'll see what happens with it. Of course, I haven't watched the second one in many years, so it'll also be something new that I'm watching again. But I do remember the general idea of it, and I think that throughout the years, when I go back and watch episodes that I like, this one is not on that list. I also, at the end, give it a relatively bottom of the barrel Quantum Leap. Not maybe I give it a very high score for ambition and for swinging and for the fences and trying something a bit different. But because there's a feeling that Donald Belisario is kind of bending the show into his own personal subjective opinions here, it doesn't feel as swinging for the fences maybe. But I like ambition. I like when somebody at least tries something different, even if it's this. It's just that, seeing this episode, and I'm going to see the next one for next week. I think we're going to once again come to the conclusion that perhaps Donnie P bit off a bit more that he could chew than with this one. But people were saying here in the chat that at least you have Scott Bakula giving a really good performance, and if nothing else, that is something I take away from here. That I do think that he took it very seriously, and he wanted to give to him, this seemed like a different type of episode, and it seemed like it was important to him to really put in a good performance. So I can respect that, if nothing else.
Yeah, throughout season 4, especially the later half of season 4, they were trying a lot of new stuff, and it, in some ways for me, it's been muddying the waters. Quantum Leap kind of has a tried and true, premise that could just go on and on and on, leaping, and then occasionally you have something with a message that's like a really heavy episode. And then it was really cool when we started getting ones that, whether it be Future Boy, The Leap Home, just different ones that kind of deepened Al and Sam's relationship and kind of gave a little bit of history to the show, which was nice. But I feel like now they're messing so much with the formula, it's muddying the formula, and this episode does it in a big way. And if they don't really give a good reason for it, just like they didn't really give a good reason why he became an ape, I'm not going to be... It's going to leave a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, the ape episode was a stretch. This one has... This one has more of an agenda behind it compared to all the other episodes.
Tex Roger says there are a lot of issues with this show. The overlap of time with Future Boy is another one.
No, that's not an issue. Sam can be in multiple people at the same time. He just doesn't ever interact with himself, really.
And the Dead Man says the Future Boy was awesome, and I agree.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember when I started, but I think sometime in season 1. I think you've been here for a long time, so... By the way, every episode is here on this channel, so if you ever missed one at the beginning, you're always welcome to watch it in sort of a replay capacity. But even better, we love having everybody here. That's really the funnest part.
True.
It was and should be watched as a 2-hour episode, Malachi D. Wildman. I agree, but the thing is that these days, if you want to stream it, or if you want to watch it in any kind of capacity anywhere, these have been split into 2 episodes. The only time that they were ever showed as 1 episode was when it aired. And after that, I think never again. So,
and for the nature of our show, I mean, we know Tex Rogers has a time he's got to be off. I mean, if we had 3 real changes...
I didn't want to upset Tex. It's very important to keep things moving along for Tex, because I wouldn't want to waste his time. Yeah, I agree, Nick. And seems like a 2-hour movie. I actually think that the pacing here, some of the things actually are slow. Some of the scenes kind of move slowly. Maybe it could have been like a 90-minute episode. I don't know. But in any case, I feel like there isn't a ton for us to say about it. The dead man gave a super sticker. Is it a poop sticker? I don't know. It says super
Yep.
sticker here. It's
Yep,
a poop.
Um,
Thank you, the dead man. Thank you for the poop.
but I do think that this shows really how much the show is getting right and staying away from historical events.
Yeah.
This is also, and we saw it from the opening, this really, it's not something that we're imagining. They were on the bubble a number of times. They had to have campaigns of people writing letters to save the show, and the network was kind of annoyed with this. Sometimes you have one guy showing up, another executive coming and leaving, and I feel like there was a general vibe that they wanted to get rid of this show. 5 seasons, they can maybe push it into syndication. It wasn't, maybe after 5 seasons, it was getting more expensive to produce. They just didn't want it, and maybe the viewership was going down a little bit. They tried. You could tell that they really pressured Donald P. Belisario, and I've heard interviews with him that they really pressured him to try to revamp the show. You could see it from the credits. You could see that he's trying different ideas. He's going to try a lot of different things in this season. But I will say this: there are things that happen in this season that I do enjoy. There's things that they took swings that I like the idea, and I like that they tried something different. And I think that this season is a combination of swinging for the fences, pressure from the network, some things that work very well and some things that don't work well, and it's all like in one season. But it's going to be an interesting one for us.
We're glad to have you here, Michelle Ferry.
Michelle Ferry, we're so happy that you joined us. And like I said, even though you joined in recently and we still have a whole season that we all hang out and watch these together, you can always go back and watch the previous ones. Hopefully you'll find them amusing as well. I didn't have a bunch of impressions today because there wasn't a lot to do impressions. He's just like, I don't know. He's like,
Sam.
But there wasn't really a lot going on. It was,
No.
and that's another thing. At the end, he's trying a lot of things, Donald P. Belisario, but the episode doesn't seem to be doing a lot. And I think that next week we're probably going to have similar thoughts because all this time jumping and showing us the things in Oswald's life, it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't really capture my attention that much. It doesn't feel very Quantum Leap to me. That's the truth.
It's
I
definitely
also
different.
feel like Sam, Al not believing Sam and then seeing Sam do it, and he was still kind of arguing with him about whether or not this was happening. That kind of felt off. But I will say, as far as concerning, remember, I saw this as a young kid. I do know that this season has the evil. I remember episodes of the Evil Leaper and liking that concept. And I was kind of shocked when I realized it wasn't until the last season that we were going to get that. So I am looking forward to that as something that shakes the show up and, gives almost like the master to Doctor Who. Like, we're going to, it adds an element that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Absolutely. I see that Lisa Catrine said something I like. She said, there are some good, in my opinion, the worst of the series too. I think that's an interesting way to describe the 5th season. It certainly is uneven, but there are things in it that I genuinely like. There's a trilogy of episodes that I enjoy. There's some ideas that I don't want to spoil for Ro, for people who may not have seen them. But there's certain things introduced, concepts that we haven't seen before that are introduced in this season. For those concepts and maybe the trilogy alone, there's certainly redeeming things here. At the same time, we have a few historical figures, a few strange things that happened, hit and miss, but it's gonna be a lot for us to talk about. That's for sure. There isn't going to be a shortage of us sharing our views on these episodes. Tex Rogers, Lisa Catrine agreed. Mind merge shows bad. Celebrities bad. You know what, Tex? That's not a bad way to describe it. Yeah. So I guess before we head off, do any of you want to share like a final thought? Any of you three, Ro, Script?
I mean, I will say, like I said, I mean, I'm intrigued to see how they wrap this thing up. I have questions. Obviously, I mentioned the fact that why is he leaping into Lee Harvey Oswald? For one, from what we know, he's supposed to be changing the future, changing the history, et cetera, et cetera. How is this? How does this fit into that formula? So I'm eager to see what happens next week.
Yeah, that's the one kind of odd variable about this episode is that we
Yes.
don't know why Sam is here.
Right, and they try to explain it even in this first part where they're like, well, if you hadn't not killed that guy, he wouldn't have saved 17 people.
Yeah.
At the same time, somebody else here in the chat today said, well, if he killed that guy, wouldn't he have been court-martialed? Maybe he never gets a chance to, meet up with John F. Kennedy. So did he really help history or didn't he? You know what I mean? Tracy Alexander said it's crazy that my top episodes are in my least favorite season. Like I said, the 5th season has some cool episodes in it, ones that are very memorable and ones that I like. Mm-hmm. It's just that there's also some misses that are hard to ignore. So it's an uneven it's an uneven series. Price mentioned a couple already. Yeah, I think I did. I think that the trilogy, I think it's called Trilogy. I think that's interesting. And then there's the, EL. And,
We've talked about it in previous seasons. So
probably Ro has heard people talking about it in the chat, but I don't want to ruin it for him. Tap dancing around that one. Price of Reason.
I was actually wondering if that was coming into play in this episode, because I was trying to like things just felt so off in this episode.
It's a very strange one. I can't blame you, Nick. It's not. It feels like almost like a different show, and I'm not mad at Donald P. Belisario, but
we had somebody in chat earlier ask, if it's still better than every episode of the new series.
Yes, it's still better because you know what? At least we're already invested here. We care about Sam. We care about Al. We already like Scott Bakula. We like seeing what he does. I still would watch this over anything from the new series. Any episode from the new series, I would watch this over that one. But this is still one of the bottom of the barrel episodes from the original series.
I also think because Sam is such a strong character that it feels wrong watching him treat women that way. It just doesn't. It feels so out of character, and I mean that's the point. But it also,
you really pinpointed here. And I said this at the beginning. This is exactly the problem of Sam leaping into Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, if they wanted to do something cool, maybe he leaps into a guy at this time, and he says to himself, "This thing is going to happen today, and I can change history, and I'm going to do that now." And then he tries to actually change it, but he's not supposed to do it, and he finds himself in a strange situation. He wants to stop something, but he can't. That would have been a more interesting way to tackle it. That he came on an unrelated leap, kind of like the opposite of what Al did with MIA, meaning he needed to do something, but he now wants to help JFK, and he can't do it. He can't do both things. That, I think, would have been more interesting, but that's not what they did here.
Thanks for spoiling it for me.
Oh, sorry. I don't think I spoiled. Did I spoil?
No.
Not really. In any case, I think it's a good time to look at our people that were here and say some goodbyes, and then I'll say goodbye to everybody our panel. So thank you, Mary White, again. Mary White, thank you for the 20 subscription super chat. That was very kind of you. I really appreciate that, and also that you help with this. Shoutouts Part 1, Rob Nutskubla, The Dead Man, Tex Rogers, Ron Donofero, Marla Sharondoff, Lisa Katryan, Michelle Ferry, Matthew Marcillo, Tracy Alexander, Murrockstra, Storm King, Malachi D. Wildman, and of course Price Rowe, Nick and Script. Yes, that is all correct. Thank you, Mary White, for helping put that together. Read by nature, I don't know if he was here all the time, but it would be interesting if he jumped into a Secret Service agent and have it be a case of being close to the problem, but unable to convince others to change it. Yes, that would have been pretty cool. And, you know, in the next episode, without spoiling, there's something that happens that feels like almost they almost could have done something good, but it was more important for Donnie P to do the documentary about Lee Harvey Oswald, and I think at the end it clouded his judgment. Like people said here in the chat that maybe we owe him one. He's done a lot of good work, and he insisted on this thing, and I don't know. It's kind of like when George Lucas put Jedi rocks in that stupid revised version of Return of the Jedi. Until today, I don't know why he put it in there, but he did it, so it is what it is. And now, on that very positive note, I want to say goodbye to everybody here, like on the panel. Let's start with Ro. Ro is the host of the Sacrif Podcast. I'm going to try to get his YouTube channel so I want to share it with you. You can tell jokes in the meantime, Ro.
Excellent. But
that was your joke?
That was my joke.
Ro's had a lot going on lately.
Yeah, well, May is an important month for us Star Wars nerds. So good stuff. Just hanging out, interacting with people here on the Twitters and on the YouTubes. We do our shows every Saturday. And we're in the midst of doing the final recap of the Andor show, if anybody is interested. But our regular podcasts on Thursdays, we drop a discussion episode. And just today we dropped, we talked a little bit about world building, why it's important, what happens when it works, and what happens when it doesn't. So check it out.
Yeah, that was a good one with Netflix that you crossed over with on that one.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
By the way, I shared Ro's link for his channel, and I think you should subscribe to it.
Thank
and
you.
now I'm sharing Nick's. I'm going to share yours in a second, Script. Nick, if you want to say something, I just shared your link. It's the Backyard Tardis.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not really big into JFK conspiracies, but if you want something JFK related, the Audible original, Space 1969. It's an alternate history where aliens went back in time and saved John F. Kennedy, but then used him as his puppet, and it leads to Nixon manning the resistance on the moon. It is a fun, and it follows a redheaded secret spy lady that's it's total like 60s kind of humor, not as crass as Austin Powers, but kind of in the vein. And
what's it called again?
It is Space 1969 on Audible, an original. It's only 5.5 hours. It is a fun ride.
That's funny.
And I want to say here that it's Ron Donofero's birthday. So Ron Donofero, happy
birthday, sir.
Happy birthday.
For he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny. So happy birthday, Ron.
George Lucas, right?
Yesterday.
Oh,
George Lucas's birthday too.
Oh, no problem, Ron Donofero. I would have said it sooner. I just didn't know it was your birthday. In any case, glad it's nice that people hang out like this and we get to celebrate it together with Ron, and happy birthday. It's nice to... Thank you.
Should have brought a cake.
We should have brought a cake, yeah. Maybe we still can. I put Script Doctor's link as well. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I'm putting it...
Yeah, it's all right. You don't have to worry about me.
Well, Price has got to share it because he was just on.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good conversation last weekend.
It was.
I still got to read that script because that one did sound interesting.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. That's a good show on Scripps channel.
When you guys started out and you were mentioning the similarities to Clock Stoppers, I'm like, man, I was just at the right age when that movie came out that I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I remember years later, although my wife hates sci-fi, but I remember making my wife watch it. And, we're in our mid-30s at that point. She's like, why are we watching this?
Jonathan Frakes directorial film.
Yes, you told me. I never even saw that movie. But here you go, Rhonda Nefero. Happy birthday. Here's a birthday cake. And since you're only 7 years old, there's 7 candles on it.
Hey, Script, do you know, because I've tried searching online, do you know the movie that had that concept of a time-stopping watch that's a considerably older movie?
Like there's one, I think, from like the late 70s, maybe, or it might be early 80s. I can't remember, but I do know that that a time-stopping watch has been done before Clock Stoppers.
Yeah, because when I'd already seen that movie,
yeah.
and I've always tried to go back and find that other movie. And
Sacrif Scuttlebutt Podcast. So Rose says, I share a birthday with Beyonce. She's in Chicago tonight. It's good to know. I like Beyonce more than I like her husband.
True.
just putting that out there. That's my opinion, although probably everybody has that opinion. In any case, I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll be here next week. And thank you to this wonderful panel and for everybody here in the chat. And I guess at this point, we're just going to go to our outro, and we'll see you guys next week.
Oh, cake.
Bye.
I'm such an awesome guy.